Hi everyone, this is Miss Xiao from Little But Mighty, and today I'm going to talk to you all about conditionals. So some of you might be wondering, what are conditionals? So conditional sentences are one which a particular situation or circumstance entails cause and effect. So a particular condition that's presented will cause a particular result to occur. So when you write a conditional sentence, you'll realize that you can begin with either your if clause or your result clause. Depending on which one you choose to begin with, the meaning is actually still the same. So for example, I could say, you will be punished if you misbehave. Or I could say, if you misbehave, you will be punished. Notice that I swapped the clauses around for both sentences, but ultimately the meaning that misbehavior results in punishment is still the same. However, do take note that the tenses used are all consistent within the entire sentence. So given the earlier example, if you misbehave, you will be punished. So both words are given in present tense. So in English, we actually have 4 different conditionals. We have the 0, first, second, and third conditional. Do take note that these are different conditionals and are used differently and of course have different structures. However, like I mentioned earlier on, tenses should always be consistent. So now let's explore these 4 different conditionals now. The first one I'm going to touch on will be the 0 conditional. The 0 conditional is used when you're referring to truths, things that are always true. It could be something that is acknowledged as a universal truth, it could be a habit, or basically an instruction invitation I'm giving. So what happens for this kind of sentences is that you follow the given structure. Because it's always true, you'll see that we use the simple present tense. So an example of a 0 conditional sentence could be, if you heat water to 100 degrees, it boils. Notice if you heat, present tense, it boils. Present tense again. Or I could say something like, if Susan feels happy, she dances. Again, this is a statement indicating Susan's habit, and so it's a 0 conditional where feels, present tense, and dances, present tense is used. So moving on to the next conditional, we will talk about the first conditional. So the first conditional is used when I'm referring to future possibilities. And because I'm referring to future possibilities, you won't be surprised to see that in a first conditional sentence, you will see the future tense, will plus infinitive in it. So an example could be, if I have time later, I will go to the library. So I'm not sure the time of speech whether I will have time later on, but if I do, I will fulfill my earlier goal of going to the library. So there you go for the first conditional. So next, I'm going to talk about the second conditional. So for the second conditional, I'm referring to purely hypothetical situations. So what I mean by this is that I'm referring to things that are unreal, imaginary, impossible, unlikely to happen. So you get the point, right? So for this kind of conditional sentences, you follow this structure over here. And do take note that the simple past tense is always used. So for example, I could say, if Tom became a millionaire, he would buy that fancy car. So at this time of speech, Tom isn't a millionaire yet. So he's imagining the situation where he becomes one. And so we use the past tense. So this is still fairly straightforward. It becomes a little trickier if I give you a sentence where the verb that you have to fill in is not a regular action verb, but rather verbs in a to be form. So for example, I say, if Tom blank a millionaire, he would buy that fancy car. And I give you 4 options, is, are, was, were. Based on what I've just shared with you, you will know that we have to use the past tense verb. So you would remove is and are from your list of options. So now we're left with was and were. Which one do you think you would choose? Some of you might be very tempted to go for the word was. You pick the word was because it's in past tense and you are also checking for agreement since Tom is singular. However, that's actually wrong. For second conditionals, the exception is that when we use simple past tense, we use strictly only the verb were. So even if we get a singular subject, be it Tom, be it he, be it I, be it she, it's always going to be paired with the verb were. So the answer should be, if Tom were a millionaire, he would buy that fancy car. And now we have the third conditional. So for the third conditional, we also talk about unreal situations. But what we mean by unreal situation is that we are basically referring to something that has already happened in the past and what could have been the case. So we're just looking back on it, and therefore in the third conditional sentence, the structure would be as such. As we're looking back into the past, we will use the past perfect tense. So in a third conditional sentence, I could say something like, if I had known you were coming, I would have baked you a cake. However, I didn't know you were coming, and so I didn't bake you a cake. So take note that for a third conditional sentence, we use the verb would have baked or would have plus a past participle form at the back right. You can actually sort this out for could have, should have, or might have. These other modal verbs can be used to express permission, possibility, or even a recommendation to someone. So they are typically less common than using would have, but don't be alarmed if you see them too. So there you have it. These are the 4 conditionals in English. So do remember that for all the conditional sentences, tenses should always be consistent. You should not see a present tense in one clause and past tense in another. And of course, pay extra attention to the second and the third conditionals as well, because they are slightly trickier than the other 2. Also a reminder that you can also see third conditional being tested in synthesis questions too. So I hope this helps you all know conditionals a little better, and I will leave you all with my one final conditional. So if I had known what conditionals were, I would have been able to answer that question. Do you know which conditional I've just used for that sentence? If you do, leave a comment below. And alright, that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching this video, and if you would like to find out more about English tips through videos, you can watch them here. And if you would like to read more about English tips via our blog, you can visit here too. Till we meet next time, I'll see you all. Bye!